This video is going to look at graphing functions, and more specifically we are learning to graph quadratic functions. So here we have a quadratic function, and we know it's a quadratic function simply because there is an x squared. And any time that we have an x squared, whether it be positive or negative, we know that we're going to have a quadratic. Now a quadratic is like either a happy face or a sad face. And it's very easy to remember because it's a positive curve or a happy face if the number in front of your x squared is a positive number. Or your graph will be a negative or an unhappy face if the number in front of your x squared, in this case whatever a is negative. Now over in this function here we have a negative 3x squared, so that means that our quadratic is going to be negative. So the x squared makes it a quadratic, and this minus in front of the 3, which is the coefficient of the x squared variable, is going to make it a negative curve. So just like you would have done with the linear function, you put all the numbers between -2, including -2, all the way to 2 into your table here, and you solve the function. So pause the video now, label out your inputs and pop them into this function. So you're doing the exact same thing like the linear, except now your rule or your function is a little bit longer, but you're still going to get a y value, and then you make your couple. So pause the video now and see if you can do that. So as you can see here, we filled in the table. We've put in our domain, which we got from this part of the question up here. We were told that the domain is -2 all the way to 2. So that's what we filled in down here, -2 all the way to 2. Then basically we followed algebra. We subbed in -2 into our function for x. We subbed in -1 on this line, 0, 1 and 2. And then we got our y values or our outputs. And then we made the couples for each one by putting our x value with our y value. So the last part of this then is to draw the actual graph of this function, and we know that our graph needs to look something like this, in the sense that it must be a negative curve or an unhappy face. So here we have our couples from our table, and if I plot -2, -5, it goes here. My next one is -1, 2, so up from -1 across to 2. Then I have 0, 3. And we know that 0 is on the x-axis, so if 0 is here, we go up to y, which is 3. Down here then I've got 1 all the way to -2, and down here I've got 2 all the way down to -3. And although my curve doesn't come all the way down this side, it's still a quadratic, a negative quadratic function. It doesn't always have to come down and match it like the previous picture. Okay, the main thing we need to remember is it's a negative or an unhappy face. Now let's see if you can do this question here. So it's going to be exactly like our previous example. I've actually given you what your graph is meant to look like. So this is the amount of numbers on your x and y axis that you need. Over here then, the table is half filled out for you. And in this case, our x squared is a positive. So we're going to have a happy function. So your function is going to look something along the lines of this. It's going to go in this direction. And once you fill out the table, just like you did in the previous question, you're going to make couples of your x and y values and plot them on the graph. So that's A, is just to show you what your graph paper is going to look like, the axes for x and y. Here is your table, okay? These are your domain or your inputs, and you'll see down here that you've got -1 is less than or equal to x, so there's our -1, and it has to go all the way up to 5, and it must include 5. This symbol shows that it's less than or equal to 5, so it must go from -1, include -1, and include 5, which we know it does here. So see how you get on, plot these points on the graph as part D, list the couples of the function as part C, and use the points to draw the function.